Hello and welcome to this edition of Tips and Tricks. Now today I'm going to be doing a little update on the CCB custom baits we used to score a top 20 at the FLW Rayovac at the Delta. Now I went into this tournament knowing I was going to throw all my own baits, but I don't pre-fish, I just show up and fish. So what I'm going to use, and I have some knowledge, it's my 4th year there, I know kind of what the Delta, and I know last year and this year it was actually at the same time, so I kind of knew what those fish were going to be doing, but didn't know, where I was going to be, what I was going to be doing, if it's going to be punching or frogging or whatever my approach going to be doing. So first day I have Vu Au, and he's in an old beater G3 aluminum boat, just so we can get in some backwater, and it was true backwater. We went like 30 yards in a place with this boat that didn't even look like it should be a boat path. I mean, it looked like a footpath. It was only like 2 feet wide, and we were pushing reeds out of the way. We got in there, and he started throwing a bladed jig, one called a Viper. And I had one tied on because I did good in it last year. But he was, throwing something that was reddish. I had the green pumpkin blue. The water was really dirty. So I switched up to our Cali Craw. And since the water was dirty, I wanted some more thump. I put on our Rib Minnow as a trailer and the Watermelon Red. Fishing right behind him. He had one fish of the boat on that. He actually caught one drop shotting first. All of a sudden I threw this on. Got 3 fish behind him right away. And I actually had 2 other fish hooked. They got off. It was one of those deals where I threw in. The second I started reeling, I saw him wake on it. I overreacted. I didn't let him load up. I set too early. I had him hooked, and they pulled off. But I did good right behind him. I mean, 3 right away. On a bladed jig. He was throwing a bladed jig. I knew ours, it's different. It's got a different blade, different color, different, wobble, sound. I ended up with 4. I had another one on that jumped and got off for some reason. But if I would have had all 3 of those fish in with the fish I had, probably would have had 15, 16 pounds, and I would have been in the top 10 because I was only a couple pounds out of it. But anyway, that's fishing. So that was in the first couple hours. Tide was dropping. We had to get out because it was going to be too low. Then he went out and he fished a frog and he punched the rest of the day. And I just followed around him with the Gotcha Flick Stick on the 3/16 ounce Flickum jig head. He missed a couple on a frog. At that time I was throwing the moneymaker. He's like, dude, they won't help me throw in there. Caught both of them. Gave my 5th fish. Next one was a little bigger, cold with it. And then he started punching around really thick stuff, and I just started flicking the little Flickum Gotcha stick in the Watermelon Red Chartreuse laminate on the 3/16, just out on the edges, letting it drop. Ended up culling, I think, 4 times, but it was by mere ounces. Ended up with 13.3, but his live well on his beater boat ended up dying. We had to freaking bucket water in it all day. I ended up having a fish die on me, cost me 4 ounces. Went from 13.3 to 12.50. Still a good day. Weighed in 10th, ended up in 17th. I'm up there. Next day I was with Roy Hawk, and don't know what he's doing. We went the opposite direction after launch than I went, and we end up in this big sort of open inland lake area. It was probably like 200 by 200 yards. And he just starts wandering out in the middle, throwing a big Zara spook, just out in the middle, and every once in a while he's throwing a crank. And so I threw the jig around for a little bit. Wasn't happening. He got a couple blow-ups, but nothing hooked up. Actually tried an old spitting image I had just to give him a different top water look. Nothing. Then he finally headed over towards shore and started throwing a frog. Well, I picked up the Gotcha Flick Stick again in the Watermelon Red Chartreuse with the 3/16 ounce Flickum jig head. Started throwing in the openings. Caught my first keeper, 2 pound. And all of a sudden I see where he's heading. It's getting more and more weedy. He's still kind of switching off between the Zara spook and the frog. And originally I had one of our Twitch It shads tied on. And I heard one of the co-anglers say that was all he was throwing the second day because he caught his fish on it. I'm like, yeah, I was thinking about it, but I tied it on. I actually took it off and retied the same pole with a drop shot. I was talking to Roy. I thought I had better luck with it. But once I saw where he was headed, clipped off the drop shot, put back on the twitch it shad. Boom, caught a good 2.5. Then I caught a little one. Then I missed another fish. And then I basically just stuck with the twitch it shad and the baby bass. And I always throw it with the big 5/0 Gamakatsu hook on it. He filled his limit with the spook. I filled my limit with the twitch it shad. His were a little bigger, mine a little smaller. But I caught another limit. I've actually called up again 2 or 3 times. And ended with 10-3. And, you know, weighed in 8th, but after everyone else behind me weighed in, I ended up in 19th. 17th if I wouldn't have had that dead fish, but payout was the same. Yeah, it's really great. I'm fishing these lakes more and more. I'm learning more and more, and now that I'm fishing with our own custom baits, I have more and more confidence. And both pros I fished with ended up 3rd and 4th. So I was fishing with good pros, and I caught good fish behind him on our CCB custom baits. So there you go, CCB custom baits score a top 20. I have Clear Lake coming up in the fall, and I'm really hoping I can go to a top 10 or maybe be lucky enough to get with the right pros and have a win. I hope this helps. Until next time. All right. After the FLW, I'm coming here to shore, and I catch this big boy. It's probably about a 4.5, might be a 5. See what happens when it's not tournament day. It's so easy to I just threw out there in this little spot about 5 feet from shore and caught this big boy on a little 4-inch gotcha stick, flicking it just the way I was in the tournament. Well, at least I did catch one big Clear Lake bass after the tournament.